Hey everybody, how's it going? Back with another production mix breakdown of No Honor, No Spine by Take the Shot. I adjusted a few things in my audio capture system, so my speaking should be coming dead through the center now. Also have a timer going on my phone so that I know when to stop recording on my camera and continue so that we don't have any weird stuff going on and we're not switching to this FaceTime camera that's built into my laptop. So, it's a learning process, so we'll get there. So last time we talked about drums. This time I figured that we would talk about guitar and bass and how I went about mixing that in. So let's just go ahead and refamiliarize ourselves with the song. Let's start at the groove, why not? Go ahead and mute the vocals. So it's very much like a wall of sound. You're getting a wall of guitars. So let's go ahead and open up this guitar folder. Now in this guitar folder, there is a track for the guitar solo that Rylan played, and then there's two routing folders. There's a routing folder for Rylan. Let's go ahead and make these guys big. And there is a routing folder for my guitars. So the way that we captured these, my guitar was just straight into my audio interface, and I was running this plugin right here. This is STL Amp Hub, and Rylan, we captured his Randall head and just didn't even worry about the amp head in STL, and instead just focused on cabinets. And I think these are just the stock cabinets. Yeah, nothing too crazy on Rylan's guitars. I did reamp them, just a little bit of EQ before, and then that went into THU Slate and captured a Marshall 2x12 greenback. My guitars are a little bit more out there, a little bit of high pass filter, low cut. And I used the straight up core preset as a jumping off point, turned on this Tube Screamer model, and didn't really touch anything here. I think I turned the gain up a little bit and volume down a hair, and then used a Cali rectifier cabinet and whatever the Bogart V30 is. Didn't really do anything EQ wise, so this is what my main guitars sound like with Rylan's guitars. Let me actually give you a little bit more context for the mix. That's my guitar. That's Rylan. So let's talk about reamping. So Rylan's reamped guitar by itself doesn't sound great. It's very muddy. It could also be just what I'm monitoring on. Again, I'm using shitty $40 Amazon in-ear monitors, so they don't really sound great by themselves. But then you add in elements to bring your overall sound to life. If you're lacking a lot of mid-range in your guitar signal, instead of throwing on an EQ plugin and just boosting that mid-range, try loading up a very mids-heavy guitar amp. Doesn't necessarily need to be high gain. It could be very kind of like a more pushed overdrive sound. Give it a shot. That is what I really like to do. So my main guitars sound like this. Pretty good start, but I wanted a little something extra, so I loaded up this PV6505 clone. I talk a lot about 6505 amps with, your mids scooped to hell, your bass at 10, your treble at 10, and your mids at 0, but that's not really the sound that I wanted to capture because, to be honest, it doesn't really sound that great unless you're making power violence. This is very much not a power violence song. Yeah, same thing again as far as guitar pedals go, just a tube screamer. Cabinets, I just kind of played around. I use this angle cab. I'm not really quite sure what this cabinet here is. Played around with mic positioning, and that by itself sounds like this. I also did a high pass around, what is that, 90 hertz, 100 hertz. Yeah, I also flipped the polarity as well. So without the polarity flipped, if you're not really getting a sound that you love, try flipping polarities between your guitar tracks, and who knows, you might like what you end up hearing. Now, here's a little trick that I like to do. So, I talked in the previous video, the drums video, that hardcore and metal releases are going to be compared against modern metalcore releases like Bad Omens and Spirit Box and Dayseeker and things like that. These bands play low. These bands are playing 7-string guitars, 8-string guitars. Sometimes they're playing 9-string guitars. Personally, I think anything above a 7-string guitar is excessive overkill. That's not here nor there. I'm not here to stand on my soapbox about guitar string numbers. I'm here to talk about how can you take something that is in kind of a higher tuning, I guess. This EP is in drop C sharp, for example. Not a super low tuning, but not a super high tuning. How can you take something like drop C sharp and really give it some balls? Here's what I did. I heard about this trick from, I believe it was a Nail the Mix episode that I think Dan Braunstein did when he was talking about how he mixed Holy Roller by Spirit Box. He took just a regular guitar track, duplicated it, and used Elastic Audio to pitch it down. Now, how do you do that? Let me actually just show you. So I duplicated this track right here. Let's turn inserts off. So here's our duplicated track. So there we go. So that's your DI signal. Yes, you need to commit these. So that is Shift Option 3. Consolidate your clips. Turn Elastic Audio on. Polyphonic. Okay. I see. Pro tip. You want it all to be just one single file. Now, let's try. Polyphonic. There we go. Elastic Audio is on. Right click, Elastic Properties. Here in Pitch Shift, go ahead and type in -12 to pitch it down an octave. Hit OK. And now, you have something that sounds not awesome. Let's just, for the sake of example, let's copy this 6505 amp over to here. It's a little bit of a mess, but it gives that illusion of a 7-string or 8-string guitar tuned to double drop C sharp or some egregiously low tuning. And that's what I did here. Trim, plugin, I flipped the polarity again, EQ 7 band, high passed it again to really clean up that low end information. So without the amp, let's bypass this EQ just so that I can show you what I'm talking about with super messy low end. It's a subtle thing, but it really does go a long way. Let's turn this amp back on. I use the Big Cat. I keep hitting this microphone. I'm so sorry. I use this Big Cat Sphinx V2 amp. This is the Big Cat Modern Metal preset in STL. I think I turned this on. I didn't touch this EQ pedal, but I did. I liked the sound of this distortion pedal right here. Cabinets, I just trusted what was here. So that super low tuned guitar. And now with the rest of the guitars. It really emphasizes this bit here, with this groove marker. I keep burping, dude. I'm so sorry. I'm a disgusting pig. Let me play this groove part. And I'll take the low guitar out. So you see what I'm talking about? Reamping is all about your guitars ending up to be greater than the sum of their parts. And it really comes alive here in this metalcore section. So I'm gonna play this metalcore part without the low tuned guitar, and then I'm gonna bring that back in so you can see what I'm talking about. And now we'll bring it in. And now let's play it with Ryland's guitars. It really does add a lot to the overall guitar sound. As far as the tone on the solo goes, let me take a look. Yeah, again, we captured Ryland's Randall head, and I just used the default presets, or default cabinet presets, but it really comes alive here in the effects. A little bit of chorus, a little bit of delay, and then this space verb with the wet at almost, I keep hitting this friggin' microphone, dude. So the solo sounds like this. It's a little harsh on the ears because there is this EQ bump at 2K. It's harsh on the ears when you listen to it soloed, but in context, that reverb is insane. I love it. I'm gonna stop recording on this camera, and then when we come back, we're gonna talk about bus processing on the guitars, as well as processing on the bass. Okay, we're back. Let's go ahead and talk about bus processing on these guitars, because there is a good amount going on. Actually, not as much as I thought. So, before the guitars hit this guitar sub bus that I made, I just have a little bit of EQ. That's the EQ on Ryland's guitar, captured with the Randall head. And yeah, it's just the same. There's a little bit of a bigger boost around 4K for my guitars, just so, you know, that clarity comes through. And then a little bit of compression before they hit the bus. And yeah, it looks like I just copied these settings over. 6:1 ratio, threshold at about -15. Ryland's guitar got a little 2 dB bump just to help it out a little bit. Now, the guitar sub, dude, you don't need a ton of low-end information in your guitars. Let me go ahead and kill the EQ on these guitars, and then I'll also kill the EQ on the guitar bus. You'll see what I mean. Let me actually start it at the metalcore part. We didn't go over the metalcore part in the last video, so let's just do that. You see how when I take those low cuts out, the sound just kind of muddies up a little bit? You want to fight that as much as possible, or I want to fight that as much as possible when I'm mixing something like this. So on this guitar sub EQ, let's go ahead and turn that guy off. The reason that I do that is because that is where the bass fundamental is going to be living. So if you have a bunch of extra low-end information coming from the guitars, you're just going to muddy your mix up. And you could try to fight that with like stereo bus EQ, but that, again, that's going to affect the overall level of the mix. That's going to affect the frequencies in the drums. That's going to affect the frequencies in the vocals or the synths, or whatever you have in your mix. I want to mitigate that before that gets to my 2-mix or my stereo out. This compressor right here, what's this trim looking like? 2.7, okay. Let's turn these off. This guy right here, I think this is just the heavy guitar comp preset for this plugin. I'm not quite sure what plugin or what piece of hardware this is replicating, if it is replicating a piece of hardware at all. But I just love the sound of it, dude. I don't really have any makeup gain going. I turned the gain down on the way in, just to ease up on it. So again, let's A/B it, A without. The reason that I stack compressors is each one is doing something different. I'll choose one compressor with like a slower attack to keep transients just for an even performance, and then I'll throw on another compressor with a very fast attack for like the tone of it. And in this case, this is more for, I guess, overall consistent performance. Compression is your friend in heavy mixes such as this. Okay, here is my sidechain compressor, and we're going to talk about this with bass as well. I have this sidechain set to the snare, so let me go ahead and turn this guy on, and I will make this pre-fader so that we can hear what it's doing without having to turn the drums on. Actually, I was wrong. I just told you all a lie. So no biggie, I'll turn the snare on, and you can hear I have this compressor set in such a way that whenever the snare hits, the guitars will duck down a little bit. You want to make space for that snare. For me, the most important parts of a metal/hardcore mix, or a mix in this kind of vein, is your kick, your snare, and your bass. If you get those right, the guitars and the vocals will sit wonderfully within your mix. Trim plugin, just, to turn it down, and then I gave it a little boost on the fader itself. I guess I could have just turned this to -2, but, hindsight's 2020. Guitar, I don't have it going to any subs. That's my guitar mix. Overall, pretty simple. I tried to use as kind of little plugins as I could on the way before it hit the sub mix. I'd rather affect everything evenly rather than affect each individual thing and then eat up DSP. Bass is where things get pretty not as bad as I thought. So let's open up this bass folder and make these guys medium. Okay, so bass amp main. This, we just captured one performance. Bass amp main is using this. I believe this is an original sound that STL has. I have this Obsidian drive, Obsidious is what it's called. Blend is at all the way because I really want as much grit as I want. Ampeg cab, really, I'm more focused on the dirty channel here and no real crazy effects. So the main bass sounds like this. I think this guy right here is a cleaner tone. Wow, I couldn't have been more wrong about that. Again, with bass reamping. Greater than the sum of its parts. I did the same kind of thing that I told you guys about for guitars with bass. So here, but instead of tuning it down an octave, I tuned it up an octave. A lot of super modern metal mixes. Dude, I keep fucking burping. What is wrong with me, dude? Come on. I'm disgusting. As I was saying, a lot of modern metal mixes use either solely MIDI bass guitars or blend their takes in with a MIDI bass guitar. So to kind of capture that sound, I went ahead and I duplicated a bass take, pitched it up an octave, and kind of really only wanted to give it a little bit more drive than the other ones. Kind of treat it like a guitar almost. I could have run it through a guitar amp if I really wanted to. So bass just sounds like this. And with the guitars, by itself, the bass doesn't sound fantastic, but when it's blended in with everything, it comes to life. Bass EQ, cleanup, and really any dirty frequencies below 60. I probably could have eased up on this and did it more at like the 50 range, but you know, it's fine. I was finding some weird stuff happening. Finding some weird stuff happening with the bass around this 100 range. And then a little boost at around 4K to get that kind of string noise, that kind of clangy noise. Off. On. Next up, I put on Virtual Mix Rack for the distressor plugin, ratio at 3:1, distortion 3, because that's just my favorite kind of compressor on bass guitar. And then I sidechain the bass to the kick. So every time the kick hits, the bass kind of ducks down. This is a pretty common practice, not just for hardcore and metal mixes, but EDM and pop as well, just to give the kick and the bass guitar to breathe. So let's play the kick and bass together. Come on, Pro Tools, you can do it. See how every time the kick is da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, the bass is kind of ducking down real quick. The attack on that is set to 10 milliseconds and the release is at 80. So pretty fast attack and release. You don't want a ton of sidechain compression on your bass when you're doing that. So it's really just to make space for the transient of the kick. So all together, the bass and the guitars sound like this. Let's take it, yeah, let's take it from the meathead section. Again, the name of the game here, greater than the sum of its parts. Obviously, when you're demoing things out, you want, and even during your final mix, you want it to sound the best as it can. But a lot of that does come from just trying different sounds that you might not think to use, methods that you might not think to use, like pitching the bass up an octave and blending that in with the rest of your take. Pitching the guitars down an octave and blending that in with the rest of your take. I've seen, there's one engineer on YouTube, I can't remember his name for the life of me, but what he'll do is he will blend his dirty guitars in with kind of like a trashy, super mid-rangey kind of crunch guitar, and it just brings the performance to life. So experiment with whatever sounds you want, and you're not just restricted to 5150 amps or 6505 amps or Marshall or Randall amps for hardcore mixes. I know that those are the amps that I used on this, but experiment with Fender amps or Music Man amps or whatever. The world's your oyster. You have so many amp sim plugins out there for you to play with. You might as well use them all. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you liked this video, go ahead and hit subscribe and like and leave a comment. And if you want to work with me, if you want me to mix or master your release, go ahead and shoot me an email at ethanconcourseaudio@gmail.com. And I will see you all in the next video.